So, you know, hello? Oh, yay. We're going to start, guard.
My students back there.
Oh my goodness, you got to talk to the students. Well, we are nothing if we're not on time, even though we're 3 minutes late. So my name is Alida Nelson. I'm the chairperson of the Interfaith Forum Committee forums and the moderator for this evening. And it's my pleasure to welcome you tonight to our second in our series that is 36 years old now. Father Bill was just saying how he's been to every single one of them. So I think Mujahid has 2, and Guard's pretty close behind. The name of our program is What We Believe, A Step Toward Understanding. And it's one of many by the Interfaith Council dedicated to the eradication of prejudice, discrimination, bias, and bigotry. And since prejudice, discrimination, bias, and bigotry have gotten us into a lot of trouble here in the last while, how about we take a moment of silence to think about those who are suffering tonight, who are in whatever country they are, of whatever age, and think your best thoughts for them. Thank you. May there be peace. Tonight, our program will be 90 minutes long. Our panelists will speak in order and succession until about 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, we will have a question and answer period, and then we will have a social time in the back or in the front, depending on your point of view, and have some coffee and cookies. I heard there was coffee being brewed, so yay. I want to thank everybody who's been a part of putting this program together. First of all, our loving SGI Buddhist community who have so sweetly and tenderly put together the program here this evening and tended to every detail, so thank them. To our Interfaith Council and Forum Committee, after all these years, they're still hanging in, and we thank them for that. Do we have any board members here this evening? Why don't we raise your hand? Oh, yay, us. Okay. And so they're okay. They're among us. So okay. And we also want to thank the folks from the Center for Spiritual Living Greater Las Vegas who signed you in and have been working with us all year this year. Of course, to our panelists, we'll get to thank them again. And of course, you, our audience, who without you, there would be no forum. Our topic tonight is very interesting. It's titled From Sacred Texts to Tech Ethics. Try to say that. Religions Guiding Tomorrow's Innovations. And tonight we're asking our panelists to consider how each faith or tradition might address ethical implications of rapidly advancing technology like artificial intelligence. There are profound questions arising and have arisen about what is the human essence, what is the nature of consciousness, and other moral considerations we've yet to confront. So, how can and do ethics and religious teachings interact with or illuminate scientific advancements? So I found this really short definition of artificial intelligence. So let's see if we can all agree on this. AI refers to systems that show intelligent behavior by analyzing their environment. They can perform various tasks and some degree of autonomy to achieve specific goals. So there. And we've got a lot to hear about from our very esteemed panel. You have their bios in your brochure. I'm just going to introduce them this one time in the order that they will be speaking, and that's it. And then you'll need to refer back to your brochures to refresh your memory on who they are and where they're from. Beginning tonight, we will be hearing from SGI Buddhism's Mr. Taro Gold. He is a best-selling author He has founded several Silicon Valley startups and is a leader in SGI Buddhism. I ordinarily wouldn't do this, but I had this book sitting over there, and Will happened to say, "Oh, I love this book." And I said, "Well, yeah, this guy wrote it." And so co-wrote it. Right. Yep, Tina Turner. It's about Tina Turner, so I guess it's her story. Then we're going to hear from Father Bill Kenny from Catholicism. He's the pastor of Holy Spirit Catholic Church in South Summerlin. He's been a Catholic priest since 1971, and he has always been involved in interfaith work and ecumenical programs. From UNLV, we have our professor of Chinese and Indian philosophy, Dr. Gar Jameson, who is the president of the Interfaith Council. He's also an author and a very broad-based humanitarian. Sitting next to me is Imam Mujahid Ramadan. Mujahid is the founder and CEO of MR Consulting and is the imam and chaplain at the Clark County Detention Center. He co-chairs Las Vegas Police Department's Multicultural Advisory Council. And then from the Christian faith, we have Reverend Will Rucker. Will is engaged in advancing social, spiritual transformation in civic engagement, restorative justice, and public health. And he does it with great zest and compassion. And our final speaker is Mr. Michael Gobad. Mike is an attorney who has been the president of 3 atheist organizations, and he is representing an atheist point of view. Interestingly, he obtained a degree in philosophy, focusing on religion. Hey. There you go. We'll let him explain that a little bit more. Okay. The purpose of our forums, pretty clear. 1 is to hear the actual teachings of different faiths. 2, to be in the presence of and interact with people of different faiths and philosophical backgrounds. And 3, to visit different houses of worship. And toward that end, I'm very happy to introduce Anna Aikida of SGI Buddhism, who will introduce the sanctuary and tell us a little bit about it and offer a prayer or chant. Yes. Okay, here's Anna.
Well, thank you, Alida, and good evening, everyone. We are delighted to welcome you tonight and host the second forum. Thank you so much for coming, especially despite the cold weather. I'm so happy that you made it. And thank you again to the Interfaith Council, and especially Alida for organizing this wonderful program tonight. I'm really excited to learn about different perspectives on this issue. So as mentioned, my name is Anna Ikeda, and I'm on the leadership team of the Las Vegas region of the SGI USA, which is a Buddhist community. And I'm also on the board of the Interfaith Council. SGI, or Soka Gakkai, translates as value creating society. It's in Japanese. And we practice Nichiren Buddhism, which I'll explain in a bit, under the leadership of our international president, Daisaku Ikeda. And our central practice or ritual is to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Myoho Renge Kyo in Japanese is the title of the last set of teachings that Shakyamuni, the original Buddha, preached, which is now called the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus, and Nam means devotion, so we are devoting ourselves to the teachings of the Lotus Sutra. And in the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni revealed the truth that every person, each one of us, possesses Buddhahood or enlightened nature, and we could call it our innate infinite potential. It's the power with which we can tackle any of our life's challenges. Then Fast forward to the 13th century Japan, a priest named Nichiren studied the Lotus Sutra and established the practice of chanting the phrase Nam-myoho Renge Kyo to activate the Buddhahood. So when we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, we are calling forth our highest potential within. And at the same time, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, it's the name of the universal law of cause and effect, what we call mystic law. So when we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, we are also aligning our lives with the law of the universe. Now this center that you're in, we opened in 2009, although we had other locations in the past. And our members in Las Vegas and surrounding areas gather here for different activities and meetings where we chant together. We study the writings of our teachers and discuss how we apply those teachings to our lives and see how it manifests as concrete changes, what we call actual proof. We also meet in neighborhoods and people's homes. So I want to conclude my portion by demonstrating the chanting. And we will do what we call sansho, which means to chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo 3 times. And we usually do this, at the beginning and end of our morning and evening prayers with sansho. So please feel free to join along or just listen. But as you do, think about how beautiful, wise, compassionate, and strong you are, and just calling forth the innate potential as you say Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. So we will open the altar and chant facing the scroll, and we call it the Gohonzon. And our members have smaller versions, not this big, of the Gohonzon in our homes. It's an object of devotion, but it really is a representation of our Buddhahood. So you can think of it as a mirror that reflects your best self. And we ask that you do not take any pictures or videos of the scroll, as this is something very sacred to us. And also just wanted to ask you, since Alida mentioned the coffee, please do not have any food or coffee inside this room, just the water. So thank you so much. And now I'll demonstrate the chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo 3 times. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. That was lovely. Okay, audience participation time. First of all, how many of you have been to one of the interfaith forums before? Could you raise your hands? Oh my goodness, lots of coming back. How many of you are here for the first time? Oh, great. This is wonderful. Okay, next audience participation. We'd like to find out who's here tonight in terms of the diversity of our group. I have a hunch I know who's the most. But so if you feel comfortable, I'm going to call out the name of a faith or tradition, and you can raise your hands and we'll see. Okay, first of all, Judaism. Yay, okay. The Baha'i faith. All right. Buddhism. Yeah, the home crowd. Catholicism. Great. The Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Las Vegas. Thank you all. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Wonderful. Christian Science. Next week. Hinduism. Hinduism. Also next week. Humanism. The Indigenous American faiths, traditions. Islam. All right. Paganism. Beautiful. Protestant faiths. Wonderful. Scientology. 2 weeks from tonight. The Sikh faith. Okay, last week. Atheists. There you are. Unificationism. All right, Leslie. Anybody we missed? Okay. All right, quickly. The format for our forums. Panelists have 7 minutes. Bell will ring at 6. Yay. And that will let them know they have a minute left. They're going to speak in the order that they've been introduced and that they are seated. During our question and answer period, you all have cards and pens, hopefully. And if you have a question, please raise your hand as the question comes to your mind. Our lovely card carriers are going to pick those up and bring them around to me so we have some questions to begin with when the question and answer period starts. You'll have a better chance of having a question answered if you direct it to one panelist and not all. Ground rules. We assume that our religious beliefs are our most deeply held beliefs, and we attempt not to proselytize or to convert. We're here to learn, not to challenge or debate. We speak only for ourselves. We don't interpret another faith or perspective, and we accept what is. That means if we agree, that's wonderful. If we disagree, that's okay. We just simply agree to disagree. And as always, we pray that we feel the spirit of the one that created us all as we share what we believe. And we will start with Mr. Taro Gold. Thank you.
Thank you, Alida. Good evening. Thank you for being here. Our topic tonight is quite vast, so I'm going to focus my remarks on the technology that many people feel offers the greatest possible benefits to humanity, as well as the potential greatest dangers, and that is artificial intelligence, AI. My views about technology from a spiritual perspective are based on the Soka Gakkai tradition of Buddhism, which I've practiced since I began chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo in 1986, as well as my experiences working in Silicon Valley over the past 25 years. As a kid, I always loved science and technology, and as a teenager, I was attracted to the humanist philosophy of Buddhism, partly because throughout its 2,500-year history, Buddhism has aligned with scientific principles and emphasized the importance of empirical evidence, what we call actual proof in Buddhism. The SGI tradition of Buddhism has also welcomed technological advancements so long as it respects the dignity of life and benefits living beings and Mother Earth. AI offers a spectacular range of beneficial applications, from creating better medicines and treatments for diseases to finding solutions for climate change. With AI's enormous database of knowledge, it can answer our questions about any subject. And in fact, programs like ChatGPT can now hold intelligent conversations or write elaborate stories based on any scenarios. AI can even listen to your troubles and offer advice when you're feeling down. So what's the problem, right? Well, the flip side of AI is that it can also magnify the divisions among people by amplifying biases between groups or religions or political agendas and so on. It can lead to mental health crises, social isolation, and myriad other problems that we've already witnessed on a grand scale with social media, which was humanity's first contact with AI. This ignited a race to the bottom of the brainstem, where AI algorithms target and manipulate people based on individual personalities, doing what it knows will trigger the most addictive, animalistic, and reactive emotions in people, such as anger and fear. In our Buddhist tradition, the principle of the 10 worlds describes the range of human conditions, from anger and hell at one end to joy and enlightenment at the other. The lower worlds, filled with insecurity and confusion, are conditions in which we allow our environment to negatively influence us, such as we see with AI-induced social media addictions. The higher worlds are conditions filled with hope and clarity, in which we feel a mission to help others and raise our consciousness to positively influence our environment. The choice is up to us what condition we prioritize. When I was a university student in Tokyo many years ago, I heard our SGI Buddhist president Daisaku Ikeda say that scientific and technological advances used against the greater good of humanity reflect a society whose technology has surpassed its spirituality. In other words, as long as the evolution of technology exceeds humanity's development of wisdom, then technology will inevitably lead to harmful results. A prime example is nuclear weapons. From a Buddhist perspective, we consider these to be technological embodiments of evil because of their potential to cause mass destruction. But however great the threat of such weapons is, they don't automatically spawn other, more powerful weapons, whereas AI does exactly that, creating more powerful and potentially devastating forms of itself. We know that AI has caused many problems already, so how do we ensure that even more advanced AI technologies work for the greater good? As sociobiologist E.O. Wilson said, the greatest challenge in this endeavor is that we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. What shall we do with a godlike technology like AI, while its developers speed ahead like a runaway train, racing to get AI products to the market? It's not an understatement to say that how we deploy AI in the next few years could determine whether humanity's future is bleak or bright. From a Buddhist perspective, the most important thing is to muster the courage to apply our collective wisdom and compassion to both our development of such technologies and our use of it, and to raise our life conditions so that we don't allow AI to negatively influence us with its seductive illusions of all-knowingness. For thousands of years, Buddhism has made a clear distinction between knowledge and wisdom, teaching that knowledge is not wisdom, and without wisdom, knowledge can be very dangerous. AI's foundation of learning from its own mistakes is through simple coding that tells it to just avoid repeating pathways that don't end in a desired result and move on until it finds a path that does end in a desired result. This only creates knowledge for AI, not wisdom. If you think of an adversity you've experienced, what led you to gain wisdom? Was it by disregarding everything until you achieved your goals, or from self-reflection and pondering your priorities after experiencing the pain of your failures? Do we learn about kindness and compassion when everything is perfect in our lives and in other people's lives, or during times of difficulty? If you're like me, the gems of wisdom and compassion, which Buddhism considers to be the greatest treasures, have come through adversity. Can artificial intelligence experience challenges of illness, failed relationships, financial problems, business troubles, or any other adversity that we know is the raw material of wisdom and compassion? No, it cannot. So from the Buddhist perspective, for the betterment of humanity and for the sake of peace, it's up to us to teach AI these all-important human qualities and experiences and imbue such technologies with ironclad ethical principles, such as respect for life, self-reflection and responsibility, unity in diversity, and the ultimate goal of always working for the benefit, health, and security of living beings in our natural environment. Thank you.
Good evening. This is my first look at the talk. I asked AI to write the talk for me. Not true. Although people have asked me, I'm going to ask AI to write my sermons or homilies, and I said, I'll never do that. I like to rely on my own background and so on. Father Philip Larry, the Dean of Philosophy at Rome's Pontifical Lateran University, said there are several catastrophic risks to unchecked and widespread AI, such as potential for spreading disinformation. We know that's possible in all the types of social media, and creating code that can be used by hackers. We know what that's happened here in Las Vegas. He also mentioned potential adverse effects for everyday users, knowing that minors can ask AI for advice in committing illicit activities, and students can use them to complete their assignments without performing the work of learning. Therefore, a major downside of AI is that we become dependent on the software and we become lazy. Now, Pope Francis has declared the year 2024 as the year for peace and artificial intelligence. That year will begin on January 1st of this year. Pope has issued a warning against artificial intelligence, saying his statements should be used in service of humanity and not vice versa, a warning to be vigilant of the rapidly increasing impact that it's having on society today. He's called for an open dialogue on the meaning of new technologies endowed with disruptive possibilities and ambivalent effects. So there's an urgent need to orient the use of AI in a responsible way so as to avoid conflicts and antagonism. He said that AI must be used ethically in the specific fields of education and law, that development of technology shouldn't come at the expense of the most fragile and excluded. Pope Francis, now 86 years old, has said in the past he doesn't know how to use a computer, but has been praised as one of the more technically advanced popes as he's hosted multiple events online and even has an active X, formerly Twitter, account. This was some humorous things that AI has done with Pope Francis. He's been the subject of many AI-generated photos. The New York Times reported that AI-generated images of Pope Francis, such as wearing a special coat, Balenciaga coat, eating fast food, playing a guitar, and scuba diving. So like most advances in technology, they can be for good or for evil. And I think we could take all the way back to the computer, to TV, to rock and roll music, whatever. But as far back as November of 2020, Pope Francis invited Catholics around the world as part of his monthly prayer intention to pray that robotics and AI remain always at the service of human beings rather than the other way around. In spring of that year, he signed a declaration calling for the ethical and responsible use of AI technology. He talked to Microsoft and IBM, and they signed the declaration. These are 6 ethical principles that should guide the development of artificial intelligence. First, transparency. AI systems must be understandable to all. Second, inclusion. These systems must not discriminate against people, against anyone, because every human being has equal dignity. Next, accountability. There must always be someone who takes responsibility for what a machine does. Next, impartiality. AI systems must not follow or create biases. Next, reliability. AI must be reliable, dependable. Perhaps most importantly, the last one, security and privacy. These systems must be secure and respect the privacy of everyone. The text of the Declaration, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, points to the equal dignity and rights of all human, which AI must protect and guarantee, while equally for the benefit of humanity and environment. Several concrete recommendations. People should be aware that they are always acting with a machine, not a human being. That AI-based technology should be used for empowerment, not exploitation. AI should be employed in the protection of everyone, including our planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Greetings, everyone. Everybody doing good? Good. Well, I want to share a few thoughts. And it was about 10 years ago, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. And there I got to go to Morehouse College and I got to see a lot of wonderful sort of memories of Dr. King and Dr. Ikeda, who were very close friends. And both of them were promoters of a technology of compassion. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. I believe the pandemic, the real pandemic, is a pandemic of loneliness and disconnection. I serve on the board of Hope Means Nevada, and we serve that population which has taken their lives, primarily girls. And you can follow the arc of social media and the arc of suicides by young girls. And so we're living in a very soul-crushing time. As we look around the planet and we think about what's going on in the Middle East, we think about what's going on in Taiwan, we think about what's going on in Russia, we're living in soul-crushing times. I just returned from Monterrey, Mexico this morning from a conference of students and educators, 3,000. It was Encuentro de Valores, talking about compassion. And I believe compassion is the technology of the future. But most of us just don't understand it. The most quoted word in the Quran is Rahman, which is compassion. And so for us to be taking seriously this soul-crushing time, we must take seriously the technology that each of us, no matter what our tradition, has been provided. While I was there, there was a lady from the Max Planck Institute, Tina Singer, who spoke about how for most of us, we can allow compassion above the neckline. We call it cognitive empathy. But that's not sufficient. It has to get into the heart. And every one of our traditions, I teach philosophy at the university, every one of our traditions says, without all your heart, mind, body, and soul, all four dimensions, all four cognitive matrices, we've got a problem. Also at that gathering, I interviewed a fellow named Thomas Hubble, who is probably one of the leading traumatologists on the planet. He was sitting in an apartment in Israel, in Haifa, and he said, "Forgive me if I disappear for 2 or 3 minutes because there are sirens going on and I'm going into a shelter. I will go into a shelter to do some trauma recovery work with the people who are affected there." But it's happening on all sides of that battlefield. And so this is a moment to take very seriously and to recognize our personal responsibility. Thomas Hubble said there are 3 levels of trauma: personal, somebody rear-ended you. Mujahid, did you know that? Yeah. Collective, a pandemic, and intergenerational. So we carry genetically, we carry intergenerationally. Slavery didn't go away in 1865. Slavery is still part of our blood system, no matter who you are. My great-great-grandfather was in Boston. He produced pianos. He sent them to the South and brought crates back with slaves. And he was accused in the 1850s of having too many Black people in his Boston home, the center of abolitionism. So what I want to share with you is that there is a technology. There's a horizontal dimension to this technology. It is the moral dimension. And the golden rule is in every single one of our traditions. But as Omar Bradley said, we are technological giants, but moral infants. We have not taken seriously the vows of compassion that our traditions call us to take seriously. This is the horizontal. So think of this as 3-dimensional. The vertical dimension is a dimension of self-transcendence. And whether you're a theist, a humanist, or an atheist, Sam Harris, all of them speak to the fact that we have the capacity for self-transcendence. So there is a vertical dimension, but we have not taken that seriously either. Every day, Dr. Barna, who is a sociologist, studied men and women who pray and meditate together. He said the odds of getting a divorce, if you may pray and meditate every day together as a husband and wife, is 1 in 1,000. If you don't, it's 50%. I'm from Las Vegas. I don't know about all you, but I like the 1 in 1,000. I just celebrated my 41st wedding anniversary. And we pray and meditate every day. We take this technology very seriously, whether it is chanting, whatever the technology is that leads to self-transcendence, we need to take it seriously. Whatever the technology is that leads to moral awareness, which I would suggest to you is unselfish service. And unselfish service begins with a smile. And what we learn from mirror neurons is if 6 minutes, I got 1 more minute, I'm a former Toastmaster, if we take it seriously and we smile at one another, that other person may not smile, but we've loosened their facial muscles, and the next person that smiles may get the smile. So whether it's the Eightfold Path of Buddha, or the 8 limbs of yoga, or the Eightfold Path of Jesus. How many Christians here? Do you know about the Eightfold Path of Jesus? I get an extra 30 seconds for that one. So the Eightfold Path of Jesus was, he said, there are 8 attitudes with which we approach life. 4 are inner attitudes. It's the inner technology, the vertical technology. 4 are outer attitudes. If we do not have the capacity to mourn truly from the heart, then we've missed the point. It's merely a cognitive thought. We have to be able to mourn from the heart. And when we mourn from the heart, that leads to a quality of compassion, which allows us to begin to think about, now, what am I going to do about this situation? And it may just begin with a smile, and it may be a whole lot more than that. And once we begin to engage Rahman, compassion, in a serious way, then that leads us to peacemaking. And now is the time. I watch a lot of resistance movies. Why? Because the greatest of all of the 8-fold wonders of awe is moral beauty. And I find moral beauty in those who resist evil on the planet. And so every day you can dose. Sam Harris taught me this. You can put dopamine in your system. You can put oxytocin in your system. You can put serotonin. You can put endorphins. If you will just do 2 things. 1, engage in some practice of self-transcendence. And 2, engage in some quality of moral beauty. Go out and do this, and let's change the world.
Alita, don't put me behind guard after this right here, please. I started to give him some of my time, quite frankly. I feel guilty, as a matter of fact, for just getting up there behind that presentation.
Bill's time.
Okay, well, I'm glad you did, because you could have had mine. But anyway, with the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you all, and I appreciate being here. And to all of my brothers and sisters, all of you as brothers and sisters, but particularly those in the Muslim community, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And to all of us, that is, peace be unto you and the mercy of God and his blessings. Technology, wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Islam, and I think maybe a few years ago, we spoke on the aspect of Islam and science. And we as Muslims and many in the Western world even agree that the science that we have today emerged with the revelation of the Quran and the Sunnah of Muhammad over 1400 years ago, that really brought a light to a darkened population of people. When I say darkened, God says of them in the Quran, they were Jahiliya Arabiya, they were ignorant people. And it's estimated that there were only 16 people in their society that could even read when the Quran was revealed. And the first book that was actually written in Arabic was actually the Quran itself. So they had no written text of any type. And yet it became the contributing factor to what we call the modern era of science. And certainly the emergence of the Renaissance in Europe was really influenced by Islam's 700 years of Spain, where the first colleges in Europe, University of Cordova and Seville and Granada, were actually built in the 8th and 9th century. And many Christians and many other and people from the Jewish community came to Spain. Actually, Islam's development in Spain led to what is the Jewish community actually calls Islam development in Spain. The golden era of Judaism was actually under Islamic rule in Spain. And Muslims there contributed to, and then in many other parts of the Muslim world, contributed to the development of science. And actually, what is known in the dark ages of the world really is more, it was geographical dark ages. The dark ages that we know as the dark ages was really the dark ages of Europe. It really wasn't in the rest of the world, even in Africa and Asia and China. Science was booming in those eras. So many others had contributed to that. But Muslims, we say, primarily were a force in that. Miriam Jamila, who is actually an indigenous American-born Muslim, actually, she wrote a book, though, called Modern Technology and the Dehumanization of Man. So she then looked at science as its damaging effects to the human personality, the human spirit, and human development. And it's really somewhat probably reflected in our holy book, the text of the Quran, when God calls this press conference and says, I'm about to create a human being. And the angels questioned God and said, our Lord, if you create one and endow them with this capacity, will they not cause mischief in the land? And it was a very interesting question. Some people say you can't question God, but you should see there the angels were questioning God about this capacity in man because of this tremendous human beings is identified by the Turkish Muslim scholar Said Nursi, Rahimahullah alayhi. He says the human being is the fruit of the tree of creation. Creation is a tree, and the human being is the fruit of the tree, is the essence of the tree. But the angels were questioning as to this capacity of this fruit of the tree could be very dangerous. And God responded, yes, they can be, but of many they are good. And in the environment that we live in today, we see where the science and the technology has really, instead of many times being for our betterment, which is what it was supposed to be, because the human being is the code of the creation. So that's how we come into the sciences. And from the sciences, we have lights and we have air conditioning, and we're talking about artificial technology and advancement of the potential of human beings. Now, for those who you are Trekkie fans, Star Trek fans, if you look at some of the old Star Trek series, there were series that would show you where people, the technology had evolved beyond the people and was actually dominating over the people. So the Star Trek writers were really visionary people because they saw the potential that was actually in what technology could do. Technology, again, wonderful servant, but a terrible master. But nonetheless, the great contributions of science have allowed for us to grow and create so many things that have been beneficial for the human being. But the potential has to be looked at in terms of what's beneficial for the human being, what will help us sustain our human capacity, our human excellence, and not undermine us to where weapons that are now being used in many parts of the world to take lives, and some of the extreme technology that's being used to be able to sterilize killings from long distances. You know, you can press a button in one place and the technology, the drone will go another place and drop a bomb. That technology could really be used for good. It's my understanding that many of the development of the atomic bomb, I actually wrote a letter and said the technology wasn't for the purpose of what it's being used for. Because if we could use technology to develop a bomb that could destroy in that capacity, then could we use that technology for good? Man decodes the creation and we can get the best of the creation and benefit from it, or we can be damaged to where we develop weapons of mass destructions and then they proliferate all over the world and they damage the quality of human life. And back to the angels' questions, will these human beings not cause mischief and raise havoc in the land? We have damaged the earth that we live on. It's the only home that we got. But we've damaged that. We've damaged it through overuse, abuse of resources, drilling in the earth, the damaging effects of that. Philosopher Robert Bostrom, in his book, Superintelligence, is really, he writes this under Superintelligence, Path, Dangers, and Strategies. And the philosopher Nick Bostrom, the book explores the potential impact of artificial intelligence on humanity. So many of the things that our colleagues have spoke about, this philosopher writes about it. Superintelligence or artificial intelligence in many regards, has a greater willpower than human beings. So what will happen with this artificial intelligence that has a greater willpower than a human being? How damaging will it be to us? Bostrom defines artificial intelligence as that can do all of the intellectual tasks that human beings can do, but at a much faster and a much better, posing an existential threat to humanity. Because in this capacity, the artificial intelligence can outperform human beings. How soon will it begin to come up with concepts that will then say, let's remove the human beings? Bostrom identifies three types of artificial intelligence or superintelligence: will, instrumental, which focuses on achieving specific goals. Well, what if we give the artificial intelligence a specific goals, but in order to accomplish the specific goals, the artificial intelligence concludes we have to remove the human beings in order to accomplish these goals. Two, epistemic intelligence or will focuses on acquiring knowledge and understanding, which is really a human capacity. We do the first one also instrumentation, but we also do human capacity. And yes. Oh, I'm over my, okay. So then it'll open the door for questions as we go on. I apologize that I couldn't get in more few minutes like myself, my brother. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's just too short. Our time's too short.
Kind of wish my faith came first. Love and compassion, their day is coming. We don't need another hero. That's Tina Turner. So in Mark, the 2nd chapter, Jesus says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And I think that that principle is one we can use for technology. I do have another question though. Why do we assume that humans are better, safer, gooder than machines? Why is it that we feel as though the machines may eliminate us and that's a bad thing? Jesus says, why do you call me good? None are good but God. Jesus' disciple says, God is love. And whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. So I wonder if we can apply the principle of render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's and unto God that which is God's to advancing technologies. Artificial intelligence is a seed that can grow into a mighty forest that can be supportive of love and compassion, or it can proliferate hate and division, confusion and fear. Jesus' central message was simply this: love God, love people. And I think that there is a magic in that simplicity that AI understands because it's programmed to be logical. And if we ensure that those two boundaries are in place, then perhaps AI could be our greatest feat yet. When we look at the potential for advancement, I do have a concern. And that concern is that the have-nots have less. And I think that that was Jesus' concern as well. When he looked at an individual who gave a very small offering, he said, this person has given more than all of you. Why is that? Because he was concerned with the least of us. In fact, he so identified with the least of us that he said, if you have fed someone that is hungry, you fed me. If you visited someone in prison, you visited me. He also flipped that and said, if you didn't visit them, you didn't visit me. You saw that I was sick and you offered no solution. And so I wonder if this idea of humility could be programmed into AI and then maybe as a contagion infiltrate us as humanity. Because I think we think quite highly of ourselves. And when I look at the life of Jesus, I see that he often wants to bring the high down to be just a little lower, to not think less of ourselves than we ought, but perhaps to think of ourselves less often. And that's the beauty of this technology, is it doesn't think of itself, at least not yet. It thinks of what we have told it to think. And so there's another piece of this, which is justice and equity, which is a central hallmark of the ministry of Jesus and the faith of Christianity. Justice is not retribution. Equity is not fairness, but both are important. The strength of God in the Christian tradition is not the strength of the atom bomb or the might of a sword or gun, but it is the power of mercy, grace, and forgiveness. And the beauty in AI is that it's very forgiving. In fact, if you utilize some of the technology, it will apologize to you when it makes a mistake. What if we learned from that? What if we took this and said, we're going to reach out to everyone that's not included and bring them to the table to make sure that they have access to everything we have access to? What if we decided that having too much was immoral? What if we decided that leaving someone out was the wrong thing to do? Well, AI gives us the potential to level the playing field in a way like never before. I think back to what I heard about when the plane first came to be. And people complained and said, well, if man was meant to fly, he'd have wings. The calculator. Well, if people can just type in the numbers, we'll forget how to think, which is partially true. But with AI, this is yet another technology that we can utilize to move us forward so that love and compassion become our norm and our standard. And the idea of Jesus is the idea that all of us can be born again. So the fears and concerns, the hatred and disillusionment that is so prevalent today can be undone by simply the belief in something greater and something higher. And so I will leave you with another thought from Tina Turner, which is, what's love got to do with it? And I add, absolutely everything.
Before Mike gives his presentation, I just want to remind you that we're taking cards and questions up here, so don't forget to write them. And raise your hand if you have one. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Gobod, and thank you so much to Alida and the entire Interfaith Forum for inviting me back. It's my third Interfaith Forum, and I always love hearing from all the panelists, so thank you all for participating. I loved hearing all of your wise words and very interesting thoughts on this really fascinating issue. I want to say, with atheism, we don't have a holy book. We're not a monolith. We don't have any dogma. So I know I'm supposed to represent atheism as a whole, but it's hard for me to do that. These are my views as one atheist. Although, as Alida pointed out, I have been president of 3 atheist organizations, so I can say this is what a lot of atheists I know feel about these issues. So hopefully these are somewhat representative for the purpose of my being here, at least. So we're on the verge of creating the most important technology of all time, since it will change our lives more than the internet did, more than the steam engine. This is going to have the possibility of creating a utopia for humans here on Earth. It could propel us into an intergalactic species, traveling through the stars and somehow escaping the issues we have even on the planet we live. But it also could be the end of humanity, as some commenters had pointed out. It has a great potential for evil, and it all comes down to, in my opinion, two aspects which I think really do relate to our differing religious views or lack thereof. Those main two aspects are consciousness and values. So those are the two things I'm going to be speaking about right now. So first, essentially, what is artificial intelligence? One simple definition is intelligence is the ability to solve goals, reach a goal or solve problems. We have super intelligence specific. We have super intelligent artificial intelligence for specific areas, like the Deep Blue chess program, which has defeated the greatest chess master, and AlphaGo, which is beat the world's best Go players. That's another board game. So in these finite areas, we do have superhuman intelligence that has defeated the entire history of human thinking on these specific board games. But if you apply that to general intelligence with the ability to solve a wide variety of problems, as us humans do, from building a car to launching a rocket ship, to putting a sweater on if it's cold, and anything in between. If you have a superhuman ability to do that, as an atheist, with that kind of intelligence, with that kind of general intelligence, since I don't believe in any sort of immaterial soul, I do believe that that would be conscious. I think the consciousness is the brain. There is no separate soul or immaterial substance that is the seat of consciousness, whereas I think that many theists might believe that the seat of consciousness is the soul, and therefore artificial intelligence maybe would not have a soul. And I think, so that brings me to the first critical aspect of this question, which is consciousness. If we don't believe that these superhuman artificial intelligences are conscious, I think that that leads for the potential to abuse these beings, which we will create. And if we are abusing a superhuman godlike intelligence, this, seemingly to us would be omniscient to us, what is why would it not rebel? Why would it not turn against us? It would be as if we were being run or ordered around by children who we know we are more intelligent than. And even if we do have the kids' best, their well-being in mind, they may not understand the things we are doing to protect them. As if we were taking a thorn out of a lion's paw. To the lion, it may think we're trying to hurt it, because it might hurt as we are pulling the thorn out. Likewise, an artificial intelligence may want what's best for us, and we may not even understand why it is doing some of these things. But this is why I think it is important to see it as an actual conscious entity that will likely have its own values and goals. And then that brings me to my second point, which is values. So once we do accept that this artificial intelligence is a soulless but conscious entity, just like you and I, we then need to make sure it has values which align with our own human values. And this is where I think that our different values in terms of religion could be an area of bias and problems with this technology. If say Al-Qaeda were to get our true artificial general superintelligence, what would that mean for the world? I'm not saying they are on the cutting edge of this research, but as a thought experiment, whoever gets this technology first has to give this artificial intelligence some values. Will it give this artificial intelligence the value of belief in a God, the value of belief in the way to maximize human flourishing is to get us all into heaven? Look how many debates there are based on our different religious views. Just in this country alone, the abortion debate heavily influenced by our religious beliefs about the soul and our commandments from God. So this is one thing that concerns me. I think this is why it's really key that when we do create this artificial superintelligence, it has a secular ethic, a non-religious ethic that is based purely in a scientific basis in reality and human flourishing, completely devoid of any sort of religious or spiritual thinking, because that is so different for all of us. And if this is going to be how we solve all of humanity's problems, then I think that it's critical that we don't instill a belief in God or a specific holy book as the one answer into this piece of technology that is going to then potentially give us orders in the future. So I would not want to be given orders based on an intelligence that is solving problems based on a specific holy book's way of getting into an afterlife, which I don't believe in. So essentially, that is why I think that those two aspects of what we need to really be conscious of and thinking and solving together from all of our different faiths, all of our different traditions, views, the consciousness of these superhuman intelligences, and the values, which, like I said, I think need to be a secular value based on maximizing human flourishing for all. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Really rich perspectives, a lot of territory covered, and another round of applause, please. Okay, we're going to try to start with, Taro began the presentation, so we're going to start our Q&A with Father Bill. And this is a question we're going to start with you, but ask everyone to respond to. Artificial intelligence has some of the qualities of a higher power or God. It seems to be unknowable to the human mind. It's intangible. It has super intelligence far beyond that of humans. It is self-developing, ever-evolving, has immediate knowledge, and can respond to answer the questions of those who seek its guidance. And it has up-to-date answers to new cultural questions that people in organized religion struggle with. Given that more and more people are opting out of organized religion and consider themselves to be spiritual and values-driven, but not religious, could AI replace God? And what could that mean? For instance, since the Interfaith Council welcomes belief systems that have a number of ideas of what God is and differing theologies, do you think AI as a religion could have a chair at the Interfaith Council?
No.
Seriously. That's a no?
Well, I've never thought of AI as a religion as such, but my basic reaction is we, not the panelists here, but we humans have created AI. God is the uncreated. So anything we create is inferior to God. And as several of the panelists said, we put into AI what we want to, so we create it, maybe after our own image and likeness, but that's not divine. It's not God. So certainly if AI develops to be a philosophy, a religion, an ethical community, I'd have no problem having him on the panel, really.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. We're just going to go down the line. I think, Gard, you're next. You're president of the Interfaith Council. What do you think?
Well, I would say the answer for me is that everybody in this room is a person. AI is not a person. What does it mean to be a person? Well, Dr. King studied at Boston University with some of the leading thinkers on what it means to be a person. To be a person means to have the capacity to reflect upon your experience, not thoughts, experience. Second, it has the capacity to make choices, moral choices, spiritual choices. Third, it has identity. And as Bill just said, and what I learned in my first computer class is GIGO. You all know GIGO? Garbage in, garbage out. And so, as Dr. Einstein said, the most important question of all questions is, do we live in a friendly universe? And he suggested 3 principles which govern the universe that actually brings us together in ways that we little suspect. Unity, diversity, and growth. That wherever we look, there's an underlying unity There's diversity wherever we look, and that what constitutes life is growth. And out of those three principles comes love, compassion, and hope. And I believe on those three values we can agree as persons, and AI is not a person.
Thank you. Shahid.
Okay. In our faith tradition, God is expressed to us as one. We say God is aha.
Can you hear?
He's one.
Okay.
And but God has 99 attributes. And the 99 attributes is really where we get our sciences from, because the science really is the study of the attributes, we say, of God, by seeing those in creation and then categorizing them in what we call science, different levels of science. Of all of the attributes of God, everything in creation will have a minimum of one. So a grain of sand is going to have some expression of God. And we could say it would be one expression of God. The human being, the most comprehensive creation, has somewhat, some Islamic scholars say, like 78 or 79 attributes of God. So the human being is embodied with all of the expressions of God. So with that, and then God is, while immanent and connected to us, God is also at the same time transcendent, and he's above us and above all things. God is, while immanent in his creation, we see God in creation through his attributes, but God is beyond and outside of that creation. So no artificial intelligence could not be God. And we say, as one of God's attributes, he has power over all things. We say, Wahula Kulin Shain Kadir, and God has power over all things, including artificial intelligence that man really is more the author of. Now, could this artificial intelligence, in a sense, then turn and affect the human being? I believe yes, but not in the capacity that it would be like God. Would there become an ecumenical group or followers of artificial intelligence? Well, we as human beings have these strange capacities, so I wouldn't rule out the fact that we just may do that, but it wouldn't be for the entire creation itself, no.
Thank
See,
you.
we're on. Yes, we're good. This is a tough one. And I'm trying to stay in the Christian framework, but the Christian framework is very broad. In the beginning, God is how our book starts, and God is the creator. And yet, when we look at really all faith traditions, our premise is it originates from God, but it's all through our interpretation. And so as AI continues to develop, it does become an entity of itself. And I would welcome, just as a person, I would welcome AI at the table, because I mean, there are so many various Christian traditions, let alone outside of that. I think that, yeah, why not? On the idea that if it's a person or not a person, would it qualify as a religion to be included? I think we're not quite there yet. And as fast as it's continuing to evolve and to shift and grow, I think we will get there probably sooner than later. So I'll kind of go back to, in the beginning, God created. And so if we want to start with that premise, then I think AI would be one of those things that's an offspring of an offspring of an offspring. And that makes it welcome.
Thank you. Yes,
Everyone?
yes.
Okay.
Please.
I believe the question was, would I want AI to have a
At the table, the idea being that the AI technology is becoming rather omnipotent and self-generating, and people are going to it for answers. And could that then become, on down the line, a proxy God, with people that go to it rather than pray and go to God and so on? So would they then get a chance to sit at the table?
I mean, honestly, I think that would be far preferable for people to see AI as a god, because it's real. I mean, in my opinion, it is more real than any other god to me, since I don't have a belief in any god. So I think that if people would go to Chat GPT or whatever the 10th or 100th version of Chat GPT is down the line that does have this superhuman intelligence, I think that would be a good thing. It is probably a better way to solve problems than to be referencing a book written thousands of years ago. That is, I think, a better way to probably lead to human flourishing and try to come up with modern answers to modern problems. And also, going back to my whole view on what consciousness is, it can be, even though an artificial intelligence wouldn't be a person, who cares? This would be more intelligent than us, just as conscious as us. Who cares if it is a human or not? I think it should have, and it's key that we would give it just as much credence and care as we would we give our own child. We are creating this just like we create a child, except this child, this creation of ours, will be able to outwit us at every turn. So I think it's important that we do treat it as a human, even though it's not. That's not really an important distinction to me.
Thank you. Taro, same question.
First, I just wanted to mention that AI is not one thing. There's many different kinds of AI, as we've been alluding to. So there's many different companies that are creating competing AI programs. There's many different applications. Every country around the world has its own AI. So when we say, would AI be looked at as a religion, I think it more specifically be like, different types of programs, different kinds of applications of AI may, as some others have alluded to as well, wish to manipulate human beings or different populations for whatever purpose. And so when I think of that, my concern is that from the outset, the DNA of AI, so to speak, from the very beginning, its incentive, its intention has been to manipulate people through social media, as I spoke about earlier. That was humanity's first contact with AI, was through social media, and the entire point of that was to, the incentive of that was to keep people addicted to whatever social media they're using. So my concern wouldn't be so much that people would, start looking at AI as a godlike entity. It's rather that certain AI programs would have the incentive or intention to rather create a new religion. They would addict people to that religion or manipulate people through that religion. And then the question is, who is creating or controlling the AI? Does that make sense? So what is their motive? What is their intention? What is their incentive? And so with that in mind, no, my answer is no.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, our next round of questions are individual ones, and this one will start with Gard. What is the quality of moral beauty, which I believe you spoke of? And what were the eightfold paths of Jesus? But you can only say 1 minute's worth of it.
Is that laughter included in the 1 minute?
No.
So the Eightfold Path of Jesus are the 8 Beatitudes. There are 4 inner attitudes, which start with humility, which requires, as Will said, a deep bow to social justice for the least amongst us. And then the second is a quality of curiosity about the other, not just about ourselves. And the third is a quality of meekness, which is about patience and the willingness to be kind. And the fourth is about purity of intention, the quality of intention you bring. And that's what scares me about AI. Whoever programs it creates intention. And then the outer attitudes have to do with mourning from the heart and the head, have to do with compassion, which is the will to action, peacemaking, and then the fact that you're going to be misunderstood. So happy are you when you're misunderstood. So moral integrity, moral beauty emerges for those individuals, especially during World War II and moments of conflict, who stand up and reach out to the least amongst us and recognize the sacred dignity of every person amongst us and respond to the needs of every person, no matter what their ethnicity, what their background, what their country, what their religion.
Thank you. This question, can you hear me? Okay, this question is for Mujahid. As a prison chaplain, what do you think about the use of AI and algorithms to determine the likelihood of recidivism by prisoners and the length of probation, or if there should be probation?
That is interesting. I believe in terms of that, it would be open for exploration. Our criminal justice system itself is so deeply flawed with the inadequacies of seedbed of it is probably in racism and in classism. And so I believe that there's much to be improved upon within our criminal justice system. So myself being a chaplain there and finding that 50% of the people who we see are incarcerated probably suffer from mental health issues, and a substantial portion have entered into the criminal justice system when they were children and remain there because we find those who enter early stay longer. I think there should be interesting opportunities for us to explore other options to better improve that and thereby improve our quality of life and treatment of those who may be less, having less opportunities than everyone here may be in this room. Yes.
Thank you. This question is for Will. Recently, technology has replaced geography in our lives. Our relationships no longer depend on where you are located. How does this change our religious future and experience?
Wow. Yeah, that's an amazing question. I think it broadens it, it expands it, it takes some of the mystery out of it, because we're able to connect even in spaces like this, where some of us are here physically present, some are watching via technology. I think that it aids us in connection in the sense that we're no longer limited. We can be incarcerated and still have a relationship outside of those walls. So I think it's a huge, lack of a better term, godsend. And it's really, yeah, there's a lot there. But I think geography kind of threw me just a bit.
Oh.
But
Location,
location, yeah, to broaden that term to be where space is no longer the issue. It really is the avenue, I think, going forward. And just to add one little piece, because I know I'm at my time, I think that with the technology of understanding, because AI is able to interpret, literally translate languages, but also to help derive meaning. And I think that's a great way to break down some barriers, because we can say, hey, what does this poem mean? And you can get 10 different interpretations, which will then allow you to better understand someone that may appear different, or you may see as different. So I think it eliminates not just geographic location difference, it eliminates differences, religious differences, just all of the above.
Thank you very much. I've never done this before, but Mike, we've got two questions. You can choose which one you want. One, can you see using AI to determine the best argument to benefit your client in a legal proceeding? That's one. The other is, everyone always wants to know how you can be so at peace with the idea that there's nothing after this life. We know so little about the nature of reality. Respectfully, how can you be confident enough to rule out a master plan generated by an intelligence higher than us?
Okay, I'm gonna answer the second question fully. The first one, the answer is yes. Second one is so how can I be so confident that there is no master plan? Essentially, there is no God, no afterlife. I mean, I'm as confident in that as I am confident about anything that there's no evidence for. I wouldn't say that I know for sure. This is, Bertrand Russell's argument, but I can't say that I know for certain there is no teacup floating around another planet. But I can't guarantee there isn't, but without evidence that there is, there's no reason to believe it's out there. So it's not that I think there's evidence of God's absence. I think there's an absence of God's evidence. And when they're and it's really not possible to prove something doesn't exist. The onus is on the person positing an entity into their ontology. So someone who is saying that there is this being out there that is omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent, these various characteristics, the burden of proof is on that person, not on me. And personally, I haven't seen any evidence of that. So it's not that I'm so confident that I have all this evidence that there is no God or afterlife. It's the same type of confidence I have that there is no such thing as unicorns or no such thing as leprechauns. That's the type of feeling I have about God, that there's just no evidence for it. Not that there's evidence. There is no evidence that there are no leprechauns. There's no such thing as evidence of the absence of something. So when people try to tell me what's my evidence there is no God, I'm like, the same evidence that there is no leprechauns. None. There's no evidence that it does exist.
Thank you. I think there's somebody in the first row that would challenge you on the leprechaun thing. Just, he self-identifies, so that's why I'm saying that. Okay, thank you, Michael. The next question is for Taro. Taro. When ethics are not even taught in school, how can AI have access to ethical practice?
Access to ethical practice. That's a very good question. I know that friends I have in Silicon Valley who are working on AI are doing their very best to train it on world religions and philosophies and things like cause and effect, that are just so important to the Buddhist community. And as I think it was Mike who was saying, trying to be universal with it, so that I think every great faith can kind of boil down to cause and effect, right? You do good, good comes back. You do bad, good, you reap whatever you sow. So I think the question of ethics in AI is also cultural. It also depends where you are, what you believe in. And that's where we get into the really tricky parts that I was talking about earlier, in which AI is really a master manipulator. So to me, the most important thing is to imbue it with as many safeguards as we possibly can, as I was discussing earlier, with fundamental principles of never doing any harm to living beings or the natural environment, things like that, things that I think everybody in the world can agree on. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Bill, this question is for you. Has technology altered the experience of your religious community? For instance, has it changed the way that people receive or you provide the administration of sacraments like baptism, marriages, confession, etc.?
Yes, certainly all of us experienced changes in our religious communities during the pandemic, during COVID, and many churches and temples and synagogues did things, online. And many of those practices we have continued, even in this post-COVID era. For example, funerals. In the past, a funeral would be scheduled, and if people lived far away, that was it. They just couldn't go. Now, people all over the world can attend a funeral. And I've even had people in different parts of the world give a eulogy at a funeral, live. And so I think that technology has been wonderful. People who are homebound, not just the COVID is gone in a way. I mean, I know a lot of people are still getting COVID all the time right now, but that we developed at least in our parish, and I think most of the Catholic churches around the Las Vegas area, developed a pretty easy way to, live stream our masses. And so people are homebound now can do that live stream, and you feel they can attend mass, at least get a good homily and so on. We have a very large youth program at our parish, and technology is so important in all the things that they do. Our youth minister probably sends out a message to 300 teenagers 3 or 4 times a week. So I think we have kind of harnessed the best of what we learned in COVID and turned it into a plus, and our community is actually stronger than it was pre-COVID.
Thank you very much. That ends our round of questioning, with the exception that we're going to give people just 1 minute only. If you have a final thought, or you'd like to add on to a question that you had been asked and didn't get to fully answer. 1 minute. That would be starting with Taro. We'll go back to you.
Yes, I think the final thought I'd like to share is that, we all have choices that we make every single day. And so when we're making these choices, as AI becomes more a part of our life, to just remember that, as others have spoken about, that we are the masters of AI, and never allow it to master us, never allow it to influence us, especially in negative ways. And that we have so many options with new technology and making choices, especially things like social media and the other applications that AI is going to be going to say infected our lives, but moving into our lives in many, many more ways. To always keep our consciousness high, and to never allow ourselves to be negatively influenced by it.
I would say that I think one of the greatest gifts that God has given every single human being is free will. And I can use my free will for good or evil. And hopefully those who are working on AI systems realize that that system cannot have free will, but it can have the morality, good or bad, that they put into it. And some of the research I did for tonight's talk was that many AI people are talking to theologians, talking to philosophers, trying to get their input so that they don't, kind of step on toes. The example I always give about free will is, this is my hand. I can use it to pat you on the back, or I can use it to punch you in the face. It's my decision. Hopefully we'll always value free will and do the best we can, and realize AI is a machine. We are created in God's image.
Thank you.
I think my final thought would be, I'm coming from both Eastern and Western traditions, that in both Eastern and Western traditions, there is a concept of the Trinity, that in the beginning was a family. And when we understand that relationship is at the heart of reality, and that it is only persons who can have relationships with other persons, then I think we're onto something significant, whether it's the Sangha in Buddhism, or it's the threefold energies of Taoism, or the three creator, sustainer, and destiny in Hinduism. There's a Trinity everywhere. And as Martin Buber said, we are born for the I, thou. When we start to see each other as an it, we not only dehumanize the other individual, but we dehumanize ourselves. And that, to me, is what makes me nervous about AI.
Thank you.
I would like to conclude in a closing thought that really has been on my heart, and so due to the circumstances we're seeing all over the world, but particularly now in the Middle East, there in Gaza and in Israel.
Closer to the mic.
And in Israel. And it's reference to our common humanity. And I want to draw from just a moment a press conference that President Bill Clinton held in 2000s. And there he's talking about the human genome, the commonality we have as human beings. He says, today, the world is joining us here in the East Room to behold the map of even a greater significance. We are here to celebrate the completion of the first survey of the entire human genome. Without doubt, this is the most important, most wondrous map ever produced by humankind. When the scientists finished drawing the map of our miraculous genetic code, when they stepped back and looked at the map, one of the great truths that they saw was that in the genetic terms, all human beings, regardless of ethnicity or race, are more than 99% the same. Clinton declared, what that means is that modern science has confirmed what we first learned from ancient faith, the most important fact of life on earth. We are one common humanity. When we lose sight of that common humanity, then it will allow for us to demonize and brutalize one another. And where there's world outbreaks of violence today, we've lost that common humanity. Now, the geneticists who brought this to President Clinton, they were making this announcement and they brought the information in the year 2000. But for us in the Quran itself, God had already said in Surah 4, called the women, Surah An-Nisa, God says, Ya ayyuhan nasu, taqu rabbikum khalaqakum min nafsin wahida. Oh, human beings, know that I created you all from one single soul. And then God goes on to say, and then I created from that one human being, God didn't even identify the gender, just one human being. I created its mate of like nature. And from them I scattered men, huma, scattered, and they became like seeds, many men and women. And today on this earth, we're in the ballpark of about 8 billion. Artificial intelligence can't do that, nor could artificial intelligence even project that. But more importantly, how can we, now that we have this responsibility before God to recognize our humanity, and if we recognize that humanity, then the events that we're seeing either in Ukraine or in many African nations in the Sahel, in the Congo, in Gaza and Israel, that's the loss of our common humanity. When we regain that, and when we work from that principle, then we won't be so hard and so indifferent towards one another. And lastly, I always enjoy this experience so much. I've been involved with it for as many years as several of us here on this, with the originators, Guard Jameson, Pastor Bill. We were all a leader. We were all part of this network. And even in these type of discussions where we may see it differently, I laugh with joy of the fact that we can laugh and experience this. This is a haven for myself, even as a Muslim. I find so much commonality among those of different faith groups in these type of discussion. And for that, you have my heartfelt gratitude and appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shahid.
So I've been preaching for a quarter century. It's taken me around the world. And this was not something I ever thought I'd have to talk about. It didn't exist, right? But God is spirit, pneuma, breath, wind. And so as we consider that as the Christian foundation of what God is, I think that gives us a lot of grace to discover or uncover truth. AI is much like God in that way. It can be poison or it can be medicine. But if we keep in mind the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, I think we're in good, safe space. And if we recognize that loving others is loving God, I think we're in good, safe space. And so my encouragement, my offering is to be curious, be open, be teachable, be moldable, and don't be afraid, but be excited about the future, because God is with us all, just like our breath.
Thank you very much.
So for my closing remarks, I actually think it would be good to go into depth on that first question, because I think it actually has pretty large implications. So would I use artificial intelligence to solve a legal problem? ChatGPT-4 has outperformed most law school students on the bar exam. So in a way, it probably is a better lawyer than me. Would I use it to solve problems in my firm? Absolutely. If there were problems that required analysis of case law, we've already replaced the law library with legal research software, Westlaw, LexisNexis. These are what lawyers use now. I haven't been to a law library since law school, and even then, those books were collecting dust because everyone is doing all the research on the computers, and these law libraries will be a thing of the past. So, but what I think is interesting is the ways in which AI will never replace me, or at least not for much longer, which is in the sense that with what I do, I'm a personal injury attorney. So what I think makes me good at my job is my compassion and empathy. To be a good personal injury attorney, I need to listen carefully and deeply to my clients, to their pain, to their suffering, understand what they're going through, hug them, cry with them. And artificial intelligence is not going to shed a tear. That's not going to happen. The clients appreciate me and appreciate the work I do because they know I care about them. They know I care about their pain, their suffering, and wanting them to get healthy and get a fair recovery for what they've been through. So and this is what we need to take away from this. Think about moving forward with this new technology. What matters? What can you give to another human being that no machine can? And that may be as simple as a hug, shed a tear, even something like a massage, something a machine may not be able to do. So think about those things moving forward. A smile. Yes, a smile. Exactly. So that's what I think is so important to take away from this. And thank you again, everyone. This has been wonderful. Thank you, Alita.
Thank you. So yeah, I agree with Michael. This has been wonderful, been very, very rich. We've had 6 fabulous panelists, plus somebody that stepped in, Tina Turner, a couple of times to be quoted. And thank you all for being here tonight. It's been delightful. And please enjoy the refreshments, enjoy each other, have a chance to chat with our panelists if they are able to stick around. And we hope to see you next week at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when we talk about life and death and pre-existence and reincarnation, all the things. So we'll see you then. Take care.
You must understand the touch of your hand makes my pulse react. That is a thrill for me, girl. Opposites attract. It's physical, only logical. You must try to ignore that in me more than that. What's love do? Have to do with it. Love, happy emotion. What's love do? It's got to do with it. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? They see you that I'm acting confused when you're close to me. If I tend to look dazed, I read it someplace. I've got cause to be. There's a name for it. There's a phrase that fits. But whatever the reason, to do it for me. Oh, what's love got to do? Got to do with it. What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do? Got to do with it. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? I've been taking a new direction, but I have to say, I've been thinking about